Hi, happy you're here. Get comfy and let's get started. Sit at My Grave, Season 2, Reflections, Chapter 26. Once Riley and Ardyn parted from their embrace, Ardyn was quick to lock himself in the bathroom. He needed to be alone for this. He leaned against the wall as he dialed Gallon's number, foot tapping against the floor. His friend, his best friend, going behind his back and saying something like that to his mother? Who does he think he is? What did he know about anything? Him and his perfect world. It was like stamping a label on him, and he didn't like it. Ardyn, hey! I'm glad to hear from you. Gallon barely got the words out before Ardyn spoke up. You know, meddling and gossiping about other people's lives isn't helping them, right? Ardyn sneered. Gallon got silent. A few things rustled around before he spoke again. What do you mean? He questioned. You know what I mean, Ardyn snapped back. Is everything okay? Gallon asked meekly. That question had always irritated Ardyn, but right now it was just too much. Apparently I'm not okay, according to my mom, Ardyn yelled back. Gallon paused again, seemed to do some backtracking. Oh, he spoke again. What's wrong with you? Why would you tell my mom I'm depressed? How would you even know? Ardyn spat. Well, I was trying to help out, Gallon confessed sadly. You didn't, Ardyn fumed. Well, you were so zoned out all the time. I know what you just went through, and I just thought, well, you didn't seem okay, Gallon argued gently. He didn't like confrontation, tried to avoid it when he could. They'd been staying in contact, but this was one of the first times Ardyn was the one to call, and as happy as Gallon had been, now he just felt a pit in his stomach. So to help me, you decide to just drop off random judgment while you're off enjoying life? Excuse me for not keeping a stupid smile on my face 24/7, Ardyn complained. By now he had pushed himself off the wall he was leaning on. He wasn't pacing, but he couldn't just stand still either. He felt mocked and slighted, despite his efforts. I'm not exactly just enjoying life all the time, Gallon began saying, now frowning a bit himself. He was somewhat just trying to get off that subject, but a part of him also felt insulted with those words. Yeah, sure. What happened, Gallon? You got a B on a paper? Oh no, you'll have to leave college back to your happy home. How sad, Ardyn sassed. Gallon stayed silent again. You can't just go around diagnosing people. Ardyn could feel the heat from his own body. A lot of small things he was angry with balled up into one, and that little push of what Gallon did sent him over the edge. He had been trying so hard to keep everything together, but just like before, it wasn't enough. Apparently, even to his closest friend, he still looked like the one who needed saving. You think just because your life's perfect, you can judge mine? Ardyn yelled. He wasn't jealous of Gallon, he told himself, but seeing him achieve so much, and being so close with his family, it just irritated him. He should be happy for him, but it was hard to, especially when he placed his limited opinion on things he couldn't begin to understand. I really didn't mean anything by it, Gallon finally raised his voice back, continuing to plead his case. Sure, Ardyn said, placing a hand on his hip. You made sure you weren't around before saying something like that about me. You knew I wouldn't like it, Ardyn yelled back. No, I did it when I left because I knew I wouldn't be around to check on you in person anymore, Gallon corrected. Ardyn opened his mouth to speak, but this time Gallon continued. Gosh, Ardyn, I'm your best friend. Why are you accusing me of trying to hurt you? When have I ever? He questioned with disappointment. Why are you even angry with me? I never said there was anything wrong with you being sad. I just thought you needed help working through the grief. Ardyn knew by now he should have stopped himself, but his emotions were so disordered lately. Things that he didn't express had a curious way of popping back up, more volatile. He was upset. His words were never meant to be malicious. Maybe Gallon truly was trying to help, but he despised how he did it. The way Gallon approached certain things in general just rubbed him the wrong way. They were friends, however. Gallon just didn't understand him. How could he? It was like they lived in separate realities at times. Gallon made things seem so easy and effortless to achieve. It just further drilled in how badly Ardyn messed up, how much worse he and his family were doing. This wasn't the first time Ardyn had felt like this, and he knew it. He truly wasn't sure what to do about it, though. He and Galen were close, but in moments, especially ones like these, Ardyn wished he could speak with someone who didn't just give him the sanctimonious answers to everything. Even with his fight with Ted, Galen wanted to make peace, call the cops, all the things you were supposed to do. He knew he couldn't make Galen different from who he was, and there was a time when that brought him comfort. But where he was in life right then, it just made him feel lonely. You don't have to say anything. I get it. Galen sighed. You don't, Ardyn muttered to himself. He didn't get it, not completely. Ardyn had to accept that he was alone, in some aspects, both physically and mentally. He was swallowing a lot of bitter pills lately, and the taste just worsened with every dosage. Let me know what I can do to help. I'll try not to interfere like that again, Galen told him. Ardyn felt his palms go sweaty while he held his phone tighter. The only thing he could think to ask Galen for was for him to come home, but he couldn't do that. Galen sighed on the other end again. If you ever need to call me, please just do it. Will you at least agree to that? Galen asked. Yeah, Ardyn said. Apologizing seemed like the right thing to do. Regardless of what he did, Galen was just looking out for him, just like Reed was, and he'd blown up at him like that too. I'm looking forward to hanging out again soon, Ardyn said. It was the closest he could get to an apology right then. In his head, he was already feeling like he, in some ways, messed up, but it was even more difficult to admit it out loud. Ardyn and Galen gently made back up, talking a little more and sharing a few chuckles. Eventually they hung up, and Ardyn was alone with his thoughts again. Carefully, Ardyn lowered his phone back into his pocket while he stared at the wall. He steadily blinked his eyes before he focused his gaze up at the ceiling. Every sound was muffled in his ears, his thoughts running rampant. His main focus was, or at least it should be, getting his brother back, but the baggage that his death left over was eating Ardyn alive. He felt like he was focused on all the wrong things and making the worst decisions. At some moments, he wanted his friend there helping him, and at others, he was beating himself up, feeling guilty that he and others in his life were being too compassionate, to the point it felt like pity. Ardyn's fingers went up to his necklace, smoothing them against the key. He didn't have the luxury of sitting there and feeling sorry for himself. He was on a time limit. The only thing he could do was get a grip and move forward. Ardyn's head swam as he got up. Just the thought of the time limit grazing his mind gave him a jolt. He heard noises in his brain. The frustration from earlier, accompanied by the jabs within him, spurred him to hurry. It put pressure on his head and his chest. It became overwhelming for a moment. Stop it! Stop! Ardyn yelled. He paused, taking some deep breaths in and letting them out. He sat for a while, confirming that it was only him in there. Slowly, he calmed and dragged himself back to his feet. He took in a rough swallow, and with one more look around, he finally left the bathroom, determined to get back to work. Ardyn felt his days bleed into each other, just as his last words were grinding into his brain. He was curious to know what it meant, but just as intent on not knowing. He was dedicated to his research. He didn't know the exact amount of time he had or what would happen in it, so he promised himself to make every second count. What he learned about his brother, and the conversations he had with his mom and Amory, just caused him to focus more. He was working, collecting money, and trying to get every drip of information he could on where to find that knife. He'd gone from knowing he'd have to leave his home to knowing he would have to leave the country, and now was trying to zero in on where in this new place he'd have to go exactly. I remember being excited to travel after he graduated, but he never planned to leave home like this. Ardyn, despite his awkward conversation with Galen, had kept receiving phone calls from him, checking in, wanting to talk, and while he inwardly appreciated it, he still couldn't give him too much of his time. With each passing day, he was becoming more consumed in his own journey. Not having Galen physically there to take him out of his house and make him try to enjoy days just made him get stuck in his own head more. Really tried to keep up with talking to him and checking in, but it was clear she had her own issues. She was trying to hide them, but some days she broke. The special occasions were hard. The normal days passing by weren't much easier. It was painful to sit and try to make peace with what happened, but the stress of bill collectors was constantly breathing down her neck, threatening to destroy the tranquility she so desperately tried to build. Ardyn sat, isolated, his eyes done with strain. He had books scattered about, along with notes, his phone and laptop on. He was getting deep into his studies. As he went further in, he found out information from when he first came in contact with the Eidolon Maledictio. He pieced together the language on the site's page, lined up with the place he was leaving to. When he first pieced things together, he felt an icy shiver run through his skin. He was glad he was figuring things out, but couldn't help but remember the stark contrast from how naive and excited he was getting that book to how he felt and looked now. Ardyn laid out his journal with a sigh. It was packed with the information he was learning. Puko knives were from the area he planned to go. However, the one he needed was the Kurotu Kafari Puko. Ardyn frowned. He was still lost as to what significance it had. Pukos themselves seemed mostly like an average blade from his knowledge, easy to gain possession of. He knew the one he was looking for was special to complete the mission Jazia gave him, though. He constantly questioned what made that one different. Was it in its craftsmanship? Was there only one like it? How does a Puko knife go from a standard one to one that was needed for such a crucial operation? He wasn't even entirely sure if the one he needed was there, but he assumed. As that was where they seemed to be from originally, his best bet was to go to where there were a lot of Pukos. The fact that his book was last there before he gained possession of it further intrigued his suspicions. Ardyn leaned back, massaging his head. His body was weary, but his brain buzzed with questions. Why wasn't Jazia more clear with him? They were working for the same goals, helping each other, but all he got was cryptic messages. Ardyn flipped through the pages of his journal. He stopped on some of the notes he wrote just for read. He had gotten a picture of them and plastered it within the pages. Below it he wrote, "Don't lose sight," a simple reminder of why he was doing it and who he was doing it for. Even in the dim light, seeing that picture gave him memories and caused his stomach to feel sick with yearning. Soon, Ardyn closed the book with quick movements. He put all of his stuff away, folding his arms as he sat there alone. He was so close. The only thing now was to plan his trip and leave. He didn't have as much money as he wanted to feel completely covered. He hadn't even fully learned the language of the place he was traveling to. But he already made up in his mind he was leaving. He made a promise at Reed's grave to do whatever it took. While a lot of what he was trying to do fell apart, or wasn't recognized by the people around him, Ardyn still felt the small spark of determination. Steadily, Ardyn laid on the couch, eyes fixated on the items in front of him. He clung onto his key while in his head he wondered, did this alleged timer Jazia spoke of start when he was informed of it? Or had it been going from the moment they lowered his brother into the ground? That was one of the things that troubled him the most. There was one thing Ardyn knew for certain as he closed his eyes trying to drift off to sleep. With this trip further down the rabbit hole, regardless of his triumphs or failures, his life was about to alter drastically, and there would be no going back. Ardyn